Hello, my wonderful Atlantis Scalar peeps. I just got back from Norway. Yeah, it was such a lovely time. If you subscribe to the newsletter, then you probably saw pictures. It was just off the grid, so sweet and simple, and an escape from this Texas heat, like 30, anywhere from 35 degrees all the way up to like 58 degrees. It was just so wonderful. And I come back and it's the high of, 97, 98, real feel 105, whatever. Oh, God. But anyway, I really needed it. We needed to do some stuff like help with my recently deceased father-in-law's personal effects and all that stuff too. Okay, it is recording. Anyway, while I was there, I read this amazing book. I had the first book. I couldn't find it, but the LDN book, volume number 2. And I also put down information about it on on my newsletter. But anyway, listen to this. The table of contents: chronic pain, gut health, which we're going to talk about, dermatologic conditions, Parkinson's disease, pediatrics, women's health, traumatic brain injury, dissociative disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, Lyme disease, and other tick-borne illnesses, and other things, dosing protocols, etc. Now, I have discovered that LDN works for low dose naltrexone, works for so many things, and explains in the initial chapters why that's the case. And I just wish everybody was on it. I really do. Sometimes you don't need certain scalar services if you were just on LDN, which is cheap and safe. All right, so about gut health. There is a big connection between gut health and so many different diseases. Let me see if I can read some of this. The pathological factors that allow for the use of LDN in gut disorders and diseases include uncontrolled inflammation, abnormal immunity, increased intestinal permeability, leaky gut, increased visceral hypersensitivity, which can cause pain, abnormal motility, and unregulated cell growth. And these disorders include inflammatory bowel disease, and this is one of the first things that was researched in with low dose naltrexone, is Crohn's disease in kids and how it works so well. All right, and so inflammatory bowel disease, constipation, gastroparesis, irritable bowel syndrome, mast cell activation syndrome, also known as MCAS, sarcoidosis, and mesenteric panniculitis, which also can cause this diffuse abdominal pain. There was this one part where I was talking about endometriosis and how well it works for that. How some people, when they get surgery for endometriosis, or even if they get any kind of laparoscopic procedure that includes irrigation, then the endometrial cells can sometimes just travel other places. Like doing the same thing with cancer. If you wash out the perineum, cancer cells can migrate and metastasize. So, but they've even had episodes where they found it in the brain. These endometrial nest of cells will cause cyclical, like during your period, headaches, or even if it's in the nasal cavity, nosebleeds. It's really fascinating. This is so amazing. Okay, let me see if I can find some more stuff. So it talks about normal and abnormal gut structure. No, I'm not going to do that to you because you're not going to be able to read. It's too difficult. Sorry. It talks about how it helps in gut health and motility. And I told my general surgeon, resident, future son-in-law, to maybe do a study, because it showed that, post-op, you can get really bad motility problems. And when they're put on low dose naltrexone, they don't have to deal with that. So constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, gastroparesis. Okay. There's one online case presentation regarding successful LDN treatments in idiopathic gastroparesis. The physician wrote that the patient had a positive response to LDN. So there's that irritable bowel syndrome, blah, blah, blah. Let me see. Mast cell activation syndrome. Here are some of the symptoms relieved in patients with mast cell activation syndrome: depression, brain fog, anxiety, nausea, insomnia, hives, rash, itch, allergies, dyspnea, edema, erythromelalgia, fatigue, headache, dizziness, abdominal pain, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, and joint, nerve, and muscle pain. And also talked about how it can be used for sarcoidosis, which my mother-in-law had. Actually, she died because they diuresed her with too much Lasix, and she lost like 3 liters and stroked out her brainstem. Assholes. Anyway, and mesenteric pediculitis is a tissue within the peritoneal cavity, the abdominal cavity, that supports and attaches the small and large intestines to the posterior wall of the abdomen, spleen, and liver. Blood vessels and lymphatic vessels can also course through this mesentery. It's almost like an apron, okay? But mesenteric pediculitis, this is really very underdiagnosed, okay? It's this non-specific inflammatory process affecting the fatty tissue at the root of the mesentery. And, the most advanced is the sclerosing mesenteric pediculitis, where you actually get scar tissue. So it's not good. Anyway, it goes on, but it shows how well it treats that. And it also is really good for gastrointestinal malignancies. And I do have a blog member who had advanced stage adenocarcinoma that was completely cured with low-dose naltrexone. So, and it talks about that, how naltrexone, let me read here. These 2 doctors, blah, 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 supports the use of LDN in cancer. The basic mechanism of action includes temporary blockade of the opioid receptors, resulting in rebound production of OGF, also known as metenkephalins, methionine, and enkephalins, MENK, which regulates cell growth. Okay. Naltrexone-induced OGF production has been demonstrated to reduce the activity of in vitro colon cancer cells, and methionine enkephalins also boosts in immunity in immunocompromised patients by inhibiting regulatory T cells. It goes on and on. This is a lot of science in this book, almost too much sometimes. So that's important. So anyway, LDN has the potential to restore gut health in so many GI disorders and diseases, and there's a lot of research. The end of this, okay, look how much of this is like footnotes of all the research. Okay, lots. Okay, Parkinson's is another thing that is actually tied to gut health. Let me see. Gut microbiota, in other words, the microbiome in animal studies resulted in the alterations in the gut microbiota, resulted in increased alpha synuclein, driving an overactive immune response in both submucosal, mesenteric plexa, and the brain. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so basically shows that lots of research shows that viral and bacterial exposure triggers this inflammatory response, leading to immune and protein malfunctions. Additionally, when Parkinson-induced animals via blah, blah, blah activation were administered this T-cell immune suppressive drug, then dopamine neurons were preserved. So anyway, it goes on and on. Let me see if I can find the most significant. Glial cells and their inflammatory cytokines are especially pertinent for examinations since they have been found in high concentrations in the midbrain of Parkinson's patients. Alpha synuclein aggregates are found to stimulate microglial activation, leading to excessive inflammation and then neuron death. And it goes on and on and on. So remarkably, when microglia are inhibited, dopamine neurons are preserved, and Parkinson's disease progression, is halted. But anyway, it talks about this one lady who came into this doctor's office, and her name was Anna, and she was pretty much frozen, okay, with Parkinson's, absolutely frozen. Very sad. So they started her on LDN 3 milligrams per night and IV glutathione, and this dopamine boosting botanical, take note, of mucuna pruriens, and a whole food based diet modification. So anyway, it all tied to gut health, but eventually she was completely like walking without a walker. She wasn't in a wheelchair, okay? And it was just amazing. With this protocol, Anna gradually regained the ability to walk with the support of another person holding her hand, and could independently and could rise independently from a seated position, talk. She wasn't even able to talk, laugh, and gesture freely. Her urinary incontinence all but disappeared. Her sleep improved, and she had reported less pain. She was able to make a simple meal for herself at home and resume driving her scooter. Anna's response to treatment was remarkable, and the brightness of her personality that returned was a blessing to witness. So there's that. So there's one chapter in it called Leaky Gut, Leaky Brain. This guy was very disappointed to find that many colleagues, gastroenterologists, etc., told their patients that leaky gut didn't exist. It's like when they thought chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia were just the diseases or disorders of hypochondriacs, and that's not true. We now know. So far from being a fanciful diagnosis of the naturopathic complementary alternative practitioner, leaky gut refers to documented intestinal hyperpermeability. The intestinal mucosal barrier is made up of epithelial cells that are connected by very tight junctions, okay? These intestinal epithelial cells mediate the interaction between the mucosal immune system and the products received in the interior of the small intestine and the lumen. They're determining which molecules can cross that barrier. So there's this bidirectional regulation. There's another barrier, though, and this is why leaky gut equals leaky brain. That's called the blood-brain barrier that protects the brain from being overrun by enemies, whether foreign or domestic. Sounds like a war. So both of these, the gut barrier and the blood-brain barrier, are really gatekeepers and filters, allowing good proteins and nutrients and messages to cross while blocking the harmful ones. So anyway, you need a healthy blood-brain barrier for optimal brain function and mental wellness, okay? But, many factors contribute to a leaky brain, including, and then, this includes like, okay, wait, let me just back up. With a leaky brain, hyperpermeable BBB, blood-brain barrier, neuroinflammation results. This has been linked to a myriad of conditions, including but not limited to depression, anxiety, cognitive impairment, brain fog, headaches, migraines, chronic fatigue syndrome, attention deficit disorder, schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, and of course, Parkinson's disease. Okay, so many factors contribute to leaky brain, including chronic systemic inflammation, oxidative stress, autoimmune disease, and this is all things that LDN helps. Chronic psychological stress, like trauma, loss. A lot of you guys have had experienced that, of course. Infections, poor diet, like highly processed, high-fat, nutrient-poor diets, disrupted sleep-wake cycles, excess alcohol, heavy metal exposure, and other environmental disease toxins. Chronic peripheral inflammation is thought to be the root cause of imbalances causing major psychiatric disorders, secondary to increases in pro-inflammatory cytokines. So, usually cells will clear up these waste products, but not always. So it talks more about zonulin, gluten, and the leaky gut and brain, how the microbiome and gut-brain axis is the two-way street. Okay. And it talks about how traumatic brain injury can be used, can be treated with LDN. So what I'm saying is that there's so many diseases that are made worse by a leaky gut and a GI health and the abnormalities in the gastrointestinal microbiome. So I'm thinking about, I'll ask Eric, thinking about maybe having a big sale on the GI microbiome optimization. So, and I will use a lot of this new information to expand the intent script for that. I'm also going to use this book to add to the intent scripts for a lot of the other services, including cancer with the metencaphalins, which I already have something about that. But anyway, so this book has been great. I'm going to reread the first book. I don't know, I must have lent it out. I had to buy another one today. But also the third book comes out sometime in November, volume 3, and that is going to address a lot of other illnesses. Also, a lot of menstrual cramps. Oh my gosh, they get so much better on low-dose naltrexone. And there's a lot of research, but there's also a lot of anecdotal stories in here that really can give you hope. Polycystic ovary disease, okay? There's just so much. Hormone problems, women's health, endometriosis. So anyway, what I'm saying is that I really can't stress enough. And no, I don't make any money off of low-dose naltrexone. Nobody can, because it's so freaking cheap. And thank God. And this is why, basically why Big Pharma does not want to have anything to do with it and does not want your doctor to know or you to know what a miracle it is. And again, I will say this so many times until you are bored and want to rip my hair out, that the reason it's like a panacea is because it triples endorphins in your system, which is natural. Okay. It's only in your bloodstream for like a couple of hours. So it's almost like natural in a way, because it just facilitates the natural secretion of endorphins. And almost every cell in the body has endorphin receptors. Okay. Except red blood cells, I think. But anyway, so that being said, it affects so many different things as far as reducing inflammation. And inflammation is the root of, I think, just about every disease and disorder, even autism. And it talks about autism in this too, how they can use creams or oral or sublingual low-dose naltrexone to help people like that. And it has a really cool anecdotal story about this autistic child whose life changed completely on low-dose naltrexone. So, I'm on it, Bella is on it. I really think, and almost every low-dose naltrexone expert, if not all of them, scientists and physicians, feel like everyone should be on low-dose naltrexone. It's safe. It's called the why not drug because of the safety deal. And, basically the contraindications, you can't have had an organ transplant and be on anti-rejection drugs, medication. And if you're on opioids, I thought that you can't take it if you're addicted to opioids, but that's not true. I found out from this book that you can be on ultra low dose at first. And you can also, opioids can be separated time-wise from your LDN, low-dose naltrexone dose. So that's not true. Also, the other relative contraindication is if you have Hashimoto's, because the thyroiditis, because if you do, your antibodies are going to be lowered that are attacking your thyroid, and you probably have to decrease your synthroid. I've had to decrease my thyroid supplement more than half, by 2/3 because of low dose naltrexone. So anyway, consider it. And again, I mean, even if you do scalar services, I recommend that, if it's not time sensitive, try the LDN first before getting the endometriosis relief, etc. And try first. I'm not, oopsie, sorry. Not trying, I'm trying to, I would say I'm not, I'm trying to talk myself out of, not trying to talk myself out of business, but I am. Okay. I want what is cheapest and best for you guys. And if there's something better than scalar services, then yeah, I want you to be happy and whole and healthy. Of course I do, So anyway, what else do I have to say? Oh, don't forget, Lucas has put up I think it's called the Ask Eric page on the favorites tab of the Atlantis Scalar page. You can ask various mediums cheap for very inexpensive yes and no questions. And I really recommend that you do that. Like, will this service work? Like, do I need GI microbiome relief, optimization? Or do I have a problem with disbelief, either consciously or subconsciously? Or do I have an irrevocable contract? Things like that. And if there is a problem with disbelief, again, I'll say time and time again, watch some of the Atlantis Scalar video testimonials to really give you some hope. Okay. I think that's it. All right. I love you guys. And thank you for letting me take a little time off. Oh my gosh, I so needed it. But anyway, if you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, do that, because then you can, see what sales are happening and whatever. There's very little, a few announcements. I don't ever sell your information. Okay. I don't do that. I don't have time to do that anyway. I don't even know how to. So don't worry about that. Anyway, I love you guys. And please see if you can make a video testimonial. And of course, you get a coupon for, I can't remember, $50 off for any kind of service if you do that, and written testimonials. If you do that, that would be awesome. I love you all. Bye.